Hello you guys, welcome back to the channel. It's Charlotte. Thank you so much for being here with me. Today we are going to go over all of my best or top almond fragrances. If this is your first time here, hello and welcome. I'm so happy to have you here with me. I make a lot of videos on beauty and fragrance. So almond is one of my favorite notes in perfumery for sure. It's a very comforting note in a lot of my fragrances and is also a very important note in a lot of gourmand fragrances. Traditionally in perfumery, bitter almond oil is what is used to give the almond note. This oil though is not necessarily used in a lot of perfumes nowadays. Oftentimes it is a synthetic ingredient, which is called benzaldehyde. Bitter almond essential oil, however, can be produced not only by almonds, but also from the pits from cherries, apricots, peaches, and prunes. Generally speaking, it's a bittersweet, soft, nutty, very comforting sort of scent that can be gourmand, but it can also be a little bit green. It can be woody, sometimes a little bit more of a clean, soapy nuance to it. It can also be a milky, more lactonic almond, and it can also be very powdery, especially when it's paired with heliotrope. And actually heliotrope is a floral that has an almond-like scent to it. So a lot of times there might even be fragrances that I have here that have an almond accord just because of the heliotrope. So when I see a lot of heliotrope in a fragrance, I also kind of make that association in my mind to almond. If it has almond and heliotrope, it's going to be very almondy and maybe a bit powdery as well. What also informs my perception or my interpretation of almond is almond butter. I think we all know about almond butter, but you know how there's like irregular or roasted almond butter and then there's raw almond butter? Well, I find that raw almond butter has a sort of floral quality to it. It smells quite different from roasted almonds, for example. So sometimes I find that some almond notes have more of that raw almond sort of scent to them, a little bit milky, a little bit floral, and then other times it can be a little bit more of a roasted sort of almond, a little bit more woody. So in this video I have a lot of fragrances to share with you. I have some more affordable fragrances, I have a lot of designer and niche fragrances, so I have something in all categories to share with you. You will find fragrances for men, for women, for everyone, everything from a powdery, soft, clean almond all the way to a very sticky, dense gourmand almond. So if that sounds good to you, let's get into it. So to start things off, before we get very deep in the almonds, I would just want to show you a couple examples of fragrances that have an almond accord without actually having almond in them. So for example, here we have the Majestic Musk. The Majestic Musk by Alexandre is an amber spicy fragrance that came out in 2020. This is a fragrance that has a lot of heliotrope in it. It has so much heliotrope in it that it definitely has that almondy sort of feeling to it and has a almond accord. This has a powdery, nutty sort of quality to it, but it is primarily a aromatic powdery vanilla scent. The juniper in here makes it quite aromatic, but in that heart you get the heliotrope, and it is that soft, powdery, nutty, sort of fuzzy almond. It's a very cozy sort of almond accord. This is the kind of scent that I would wear every day, or maybe when I was on a low-key sort of intimate, or when I just want to feel grounded, maybe while I'm working at home. Very calming. I think this is a very, very interesting fragrance because it has that almond accord without actually having any almond in it. And if you told me there was almond in here, I would think there was almond in here. That's how well the heliotrope can mimic almond. Another fragrance that has a good dose of heliotrope that gives off a almond accord is Lacoste pour femme Elixir. This is a Chypre floral that came out in 2019. Now, this is definitely primarily more of a vanilla powdery tuberose fragrance, but that heliotrope definitely adds that soft, nutty sort of facet to it. I really, really, really enjoy this fragrance. My only complaint for it is the longevity, but it's a very beautiful, everyday, casual sort of scent that I think is quite underrated. For the scent profile, this is quite underrated. Yeah, I mostly get that vanilla tuberose, but I do get that almondy heliotrope in the background as well. In the mid, this almond here feels a little bit more creamy and sweet. It has that gardenia in there, which definitely makes it more creamy and lactonic almost, but the heliotrope is very powdery and almondy, and so it doesn't go quite lactonic. This is a beautiful white floral vanilla fragrance with a subtle almond in the background from that heliotrope. The next fragrance I have here is by Women's Secret, and this is Oh My Secret. This is an amber floral fragrance that came out in 2016. This is a fragrance that opens with a citrusy pear. I also get a lot of that jasmine right off the bat. I get a lot of that jasmine, and of course that almond. This is a very nice casual everyday sort of fragrance, great for bedtime as well. This is not going to be the most long lasting fragrance, but I think for the price, this is a underrated sort of gem. I really enjoy it, especially for the price. Like I said, this is not usually more than $20, between $20 and $30 max. So for that price, I don't think you can expect always to have the best lasting power, but the scent itself is really pleasant. It's sweet, it's almondy, it's nutty, it's a little bit vanilla. It has a praline dry down that's a little bit lactonic and gourmand, of course. Very soft, very feminine. I think that if you are a lover of fragrances like Manifesto or Armani Lay, I think that you would like this fragrance. Yeah, it's really pretty. Very sweet. This is a sweet gourmand almond, but not as dense as some of my other almond gourmand fragrances. This is a little bit more sheer. This also has a lot of vanilla, so it has that beautiful pairing of the vanilla, the almond, the jasmine, the white florals, and the praline with that fruity opening. Very well balanced, and like I said, maybe just not very heavy. This is not a dense fragrance that's gonna, you know, necessarily last all day, but like I said, for the price, I think this is a great find. Definitely check this one out. I think this is an underrated fragrance in the affordable gourmand category. Oh My Secret by Women's Secret. Next up we have by Burberry, and this is Burberry Brit, the Eau de Toilette. Now I have a feeling the Eau de Parfum might be a little bit different, and that's the more popular one, but the only one I have is the Eau de Toilette, and this has a very strong almond in here for sure, but it's a little bit of a bitter, slightly soapy almond to me. This is a floral fruity fragrance that came out in 2014, so it's been around for a while. This opens up very citrusy. It actually has some green almond in the opening as well, but I get a lot of that lemongrass. There's lemongrass, pear, and lime in here. So I get a lot of that lime and lemongrass in here, which is kind of different and unique. It does get more almond and sweet and vanilla as it dries down. This is a very casual fragrance. The almond in here, for some reason, reminds me a little bit of the almond accord that I get in the Majestic Musk. Remember, the Majestic Musk does not actually have an almond note in there. It's the heliotrope, so I think that's kind of interesting. The Majestic Musk, however, is a lot more bitter and aromatic. It barely has any sweetness. The Burberry Brit Edt is a lot sweeter and more vanilla, and of course very citrusy. I do enjoy how that citrus kind of cuts into the dense almond in this fragrance. I think this is a very nice casual sort of everyday scent. This is not something that I would wear like going out on a date necessarily or anything like that. I think this is a great work appropriate, office appropriate, not necessarily like healthcare appropriate. You know, this is too strong and perfumey for that, but I do think this is office appropriate. I think this is everyday errand appropriate, around the house. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of you already are familiar with this fragrance, but this is a newer fragrance to me. I never got into the Burberry fragrances, and yeah, I enjoy this more as a sort of out of the shower clean sort of almond fragrance. Maybe it's because of all that citrus. Clean, soapy sort of almond fragrance, not a gourmand sort of almond. Definitely more of a fresh, out of the shower, clean sort of citrus almond. I enjoy this fragrance for that purpose. The next fragrance I have here to show you is by Lancôme, and this is La Nuit Trésor Musc Diamant. This is a fragrance that is primarily a musk fragrance, but it does have a beautiful almond in the base that I do sense all throughout the fragrance. Right off the bat, I get the jammy rose DNA of La Nuit Trésor and a lot of musk. Once it dries down, however, I do have that beautiful almond that comes out and that peeks through, and it's a very soft, powdery, comforting sort of almond note in here. It's definitely a very comforting fragrance. It feels a little bit motherly. I think the almond in here marries very, very well with the musk. You do need to like musk and enjoy musk to enjoy this fragrance, I think. But if you really enjoy musk and you like an almond note, this is a really good one to look into. Musc Diamant is a amber floral fragrance that came out in 2019. Unfortunately, it has been discontinued. You can still find it, and I will link it down below, but it has been discontinued, so it will probably not be on the market for that much longer. So just a little warning there, it has been discontinued. But this is one of my favorite fragrances in my collection. Like I said, you definitely need to like musk as much as you like almond to enjoy this fragrance, but this is a unique take on almond for me in my collection. This is also quite fruity. This has a lovely, gentle, bright, soft, fruity raspberry opening, but combined with the violet leaf, very powdery and fruity and musky. Very feminine, very suitable for everyday wear, casual situations. It's a little bit romantic, but definitely also very understated. A cuddly, not necessarily a gourmand, sort of almond, cozy, cuddly almond. This is La Nuit Trésor Musc Diamant. Next up we have by Van Cleef and Arpels. This is Bois Dore. This is an amber woody fragrance that came out in 2017. Very beautiful, sweet, vanillic, almondy, woody, tobacco fragrance. This opens up with mineral notes and black pepper. I don't get so much the pepper, but I do get the mineral notes. It gives a sort of cold feeling to the fragrance without being austere. It makes it a little bit different, and the mineral notes combined with the tobacco I find give it a slightly more masculine edge than it otherwise might be, but it's not a masculine fragrance to me. It is quite perfectly unisex. The almond in here is very pliable, soft, and nutty, but it's also a little bit woody. And yeah, you really get that bittersweet almond in here. It really is playing equally between the bitterness and the sweetness. And of course there's teak wood in here, which is giving that very woody character to the fragrance. This is a more quiet sort of scent. This is not a loud scent. This is not going to project very much. It will leave a soft trail, but it's not a monster in any way. It's quite like the rest of the line, to be honest, like Orchidée Vanille, which I also love. This scent is closer to the skin. This is a beautiful unisex fragrance. I love this equally on myself as well as on my partner. Next up we have by Montale. This is Vanilla Cake. This is an amber vanilla fragrance that came out in 2018. This is a very simple gourmand fragrance. Very gourmand, very sweet, vanillic, gourmand caramel fragrance that dries down to an almond. This has a meringue and milk opening, but it has a very nutty, almondy background to it. This is not a complex fragrance. It's very sweet, it's simple, it's very strong, as all Montale fragrances are, and I actually like it more than I used to. I used to find it a little bit too... I used to have a problem with the meringue. I'm definitely getting that milk in here. It's very lactonic, and that gourmand nutty base is very present as well. It's a very sweet almond, of course. Quite a linear fragrance. You're getting all of those notes at once, and this is also straight up a gourmand fragrance. There are no florals or musks or woods to balance it out and flesh it out and make it a little bit more interesting, but if you literally want to smell like a snack and like a sweet gourmand nutty caramel dessert, Vanilla Cake is a good one for that purpose. I kind of want to wear this now. It's very gourmand. It's very addictive in that sense. It's funny, I really did have a problem with that meringue before, and I don't seem to be getting it so much. I mean, I get the meringue, but I'm not getting the problem with it that I've gotten before. Maybe it's because it's colder now. This is definitely more of a cold weather sort of fragrance. I think it could be cloying in the heat, absolutely. But yeah, sweet, lactonic, vanillic caramel with a nutty almondy base. Vanilla Cake by Montale. Next up we have by the clean perfume brand Skylar, and this is called Fall Cashmere. Fall Cashmere is a very new fragrance that just came out last year in 2021. This is an almond in this fragrance, that is a roasted almond. This is very fall, very potpourri with the spices and the gourmand vibes all together. So while this is a gourmand almond, it's also a spicy, woody sort of fragrance. Yeah. And right away I get that cinnamon ginger with the roasted almonds. I get just as much as that cinnamon in there. I think this makes it a little bit more unique. I don't normally have, actually, if I look at my other fragrances, there are none quite like this in my almond fragrances. This is definitely a different kind of almond fragrance. It's just as much warm, spicy as it is almondy. And so yes, remember, this is more of a roasted almond with that ginger and cinnamon that marry very well with the roasted almonds. This is a really, really pleasant, easy wear and easy reach for me every day, especially in the fall and winter time. A very cozy fragrance. This is gourmand without being too literally gourmand, unlike like vanilla cake, for example. This is something that is a little bit more well-rounded in my opinion, with the woodiness, the amber, the musk in here. This also has some clove in there. Thankfully, it's not too strong for me. I don't like a strong clove note. It's mainly the cinnamon I get, which I really enjoy with that almond. It's also still very vanilla. I think it's caramelized vanilla in here actually. So yes, gourmand, but still well-rounded with those musks, that woodiness, those spices. That's Fall Cashmere by Skylar, and I would consider this to be a amber woody fragrance or an amber spicy fragrance. Next up we have by Olfactive Studio. This is Lumière Blanche. This is a woody spicy fragrance that came out in 2012. This is predominantly a spicy sandalwood fragrance, but it does have a beautiful nutty powdery almond in the mid. Beautiful, beautiful spray. Yeah, I get hit with that cardamom and the star anise right away, but the mid gets very musky and warm, and the almond comes out in equal measures with the iris. So it's a subtle almond, but it's there. This again has that very soft, cozy cashmere soft sweater sort of feeling to it. This is definitely a cozy sort of almond fragrance, not gourmand. Definitely very sandalwoody, so that almond's a little bit woody as well, but still soft, pliable, velvety, very unisex. This is a perfect rainy day sort of fragrance to me. This could be someone's everyday signature scent as well, especially someone who doesn't necessarily have a million fragrances like I do. You just want one solid sort of fragrance that people remember you by. This is that kind of fragrance to me. Lumière Blanche by Olfactive Studio. The next fragrance I have to share with you is L'homme idéale intense by Guerlain. This is a new fragrance in my collection. It's actually a fragrance I got for my boyfriend. I'm just taking it out of his collection and stealing it for this video. This is an amber woody fragrance that came out in 2018. This is definitely more masculine leaning. This opens with a very peppery, hot pepper opening with the almond. The almond in here is strong and it's bitter. So I do get that cardamom in there, but it's very well blended in this fragrance. I'm getting a lot of that kick from the chili pepper. It's a little bit smoky. I do get that leather and that rose that are peeking through with the labdanum that gives a sort of ambery quality to this fragrance as well. The sweetness is coming from the vanilla in here, the vanilla and tonka bean. The almond is definitely taking on a woody sort of character in this fragrance. This definitely has that Guerlain DNA in there that feels very classic, very mature in the best way. I don't picture a super young guy wearing this necessarily, maybe a man in over 30, you know what I mean? It's a little bit more serious, it's a little bit mysterious, definitely confident, definitely masculine. It feels like that strong masculine vibe. It's definitely that, and I really enjoy smelling this on my partner. That is L'homme idéale intense by Guerlain. Okay, we are now getting into some of my absolute favorite almond fragrances. I hope you're still with me. This is a very gourmand sticky sweet sort of almond. This is Widian Rose Arabia Almond. This is a amber floral fragrance that came out in 2019. Like I said, a very gourmand sticky sweet almond. This is also primarily a very fruity, sweet vanilla white floral fragrance. So the almond in here is very syrupy, it's dense, it's also creamy. It does marry very well with that praline dry down. Here we're getting a little bit more into that very gourmand sort of almond. I get a lot of those fruits and I get that tuberose, but I also get that almond. Very bittersweet, nutty, dense. It definitely feels buttery and rich and creamy. It's definitely a dessert almond sort of fragrance. This is a very addictive sort of gourmand nutty fragrance that also gets more vanilla and lactonic as it dries down. Very, very sweet all throughout this fragrance. Very feminine. This is not necessarily work appropriate. I think it might be too sweet and gourmand and potentially cloying to those around you. This is definitely something that I like to wear at home alone when I need some comfort, when I really want to smell intoxicating. But this is also a very beautiful sweet scent that I think would be suitable for a date night, that kind of situation. This fragrance is long lasting when I apply this at night, which is when I tend to prefer to wear this, like before bedtime. I do still smell it in the morning, and that's an indicator of a long lasting fragrance for me, because my less long lasting fragrances, I can't smell them in the morning. Very mouth-watering, but also very densely sweet. It might be too sweet, it might be too gourmand for you. This is just as sweet and thick and gourmand as vanilla cake is, but but a little bit more fruity and floral. This is Rose Arabia Almond by Widian. Next up, we have one of my absolute favorite fragrances in my collection, period, but also a beautiful almond floral vanilla fragrance, and this is Kilian Rolling in Love. This is an amber floral fragrance that came out in 2019. This is one of my favorite almond fragrances in my collection. I think this perfectly captures that soft, bittersweet, nutty, pliable sort of quality. The almond note in this fragrance is actually almond milk, which I just think is absolutely intoxicating. I love the milkiness of this almond. It's milky while staying definitely almond. It really is almond milk. Still very floral from the tuberose and powdery from the iris. It also has a great dose of vanilla in here. One of my absolute favorite fragrances and one of the best comforting all around gourmand, but still floral, still everyday appropriate sort of fragrance. Although of course, because this is such an expensive fragrance and such a classy sort of fragrance, I think this is a great special occasion sort of fragrance, a special occasion almond fragrance you could wear on a night out, on a date night. A very feminine fragrance as well. I also think this could be absolutely a signature scent. If you can afford for it to be your signature scent, go for it. This is Majestic. This is one of my absolute favorite almond fragrances, Rolling in Love by Kilian. Next up, we need to talk about it, right? We have the classic Hypnotic Poison by Dior. This is an amber vanilla fragrance that originally came out in 1998, but as many of you already know, this has been reformulated multiple times. One of my main complaints about this is that I do find it a little bit too soft. I wish it had a little bit more projection, and I'm not, you know, I don't need a beast mode fragrance, especially every day, but I do find it a little bit soft, especially for the price and for what I expect from a Dior fragrance. But the scent itself, so beautiful. Some people get more of a Play-Doh vibe out of this. Maybe I can sort of get that, but that doesn't bother me at all. I think this is a beautiful powdery vanilla floral almond. Similar, not in scent, not even close. It's not the same scent, but the almond in here is a little bit similar to the almond I get in Rolling in Love. It feels very milky, it feels soft and powdery. Again, not at all the same fragrances, not even close, but the almond in here is similar to me. Beautiful, soft, creamy, nutty sort of almond in here. You really get that pliable, sort of gourmand edge to the almond without being too sweet. So for example, not unlike Widian Rose Arabia Almond, that one is very sticky sweet. It can be too sweet for some people. It's very syrupy. This is not syrupy. It still feels dense and nutty and creamy. One of my absolute favorite almond fragrances out there. And again, my only complaint is for the longevity, the projection, the sillage. I wish it was a little bit more amped up. I know that the older versions are supposedly miles away from the new formulation, which is what I have. They used to be a lot more powerful. This is still worth it for me in my collection, but I would be interested in hearing if you know of any dupes out there that have maybe better lasting power than Hypnotic Poison. There are a lot of so-called dupes out there. They don't smell quite the same to me, but I haven't tried them all at all. So if you have one that you would like to share with us all, please don't hesitate and please leave it in the comments down below. I like to wear this honestly casually. This is, like I said, not necessarily something that is going to leave very much of a trail. People around you will smell it when they lean in to get closer to you, but you're not going to project much more than that. So I actually think you could wear this every day. This could be a signature scent, especially if you're a more low-key casual sort of person. Most of the time when I wear this is in the evenings when I'm like Netflix and chill kind of vibe, want to cozy up to my guy, even though he doesn't really like vanilla. It makes me feel romantic. And that's what fragrance is for, right? Well, I mean, for me, it's more about how it makes me feel than the people around me. I don't know about you, but for me, it makes me feel romantic and gentle and not necessarily sexy. That's a big misconception, actually, I find about this fragrance. I don't find it particularly sexy. I find it more romantic and feminine and soft. So that's Hypnotic Poison by Dior. Now, if you want the sexy almond version of Dior, I love Poison Girl. Poison Girl is a amber vanilla fragrance that came out in 2016. This is definitely a very sweet gourmand fragrance. It is still floral and woody and musky as well. This is the Eau de Parfum. I know that the EDP has been discontinued, unfortunately, from what I hear, and the version that I see floating around online is the EDT, the Eau de Toilette, which actually has different notes from this one. So just be aware when you're picking out your fragrance, just make sure that you know which one you're getting. This is the EDP. This is definitely one of my absolute favorite gourmand fragrances. I think this is a gourmand staple. If you are a gourmand lover, this is a staple for you to have in your collection. This is one of those very rounded, full-bodied, fleshed out, very intoxicating, sexy, sensual gourmand fragrances. It's not linear. It's not just smelling like a snack, not smelling like a literal snack is what I mean. This is literally making my mouth water. I love the way the almond in here is soft and sweet and dense and nutty and powdery, but it still has those citruses that are constantly cutting in to the almond. Yeah, one of the absolute best almond fragrances in my collection. This is Poison Girl by Dior. This is definitely a date night sort of scent. This is a going out sort of scent. This is not necessarily something I would wear every day, though you totally can. And knowing me, I would probably wear it to the grocery store. Yes, I'm that girl. I will wear it, even if I'm not dressed to wear it, I will wear it. But generally speaking, this is not something I would recommend for everyday wear. This is your date night fragrance. This is your going out sort of fragrance. This is Poison Girl by Dior, one of my favorite fragrances also in the fall and winter time. Any kind of cold temperature, this really shines. So remember, this is your more soft, powdery, vanilla, comforting, cozy, romantic sort of almond. This is more of your sticky, sweet, sexy, very sweet, more sweet. This to me is more sweet than this. Sticky, sweet, gourmand almond. I'm just picking up Rolling in Love because I just love it so much. That almond is just beautifully blended into the vanilla and the tuberose and the iris and the musk. It's just, I can barely like tell them apart. Everything is just seamlessly blended in. So beautiful. And yeah, that Widian Rose Arabia almond is extremely sweet by far. Checking out. Yeah, I think it's the sweetest almond that I have out of all of these. I think it would be Widian Rose Arabia almond. Very sweet. I guess it's as sweet as Poison Girl, but I don't know. It feels sweeter. It feels more syrupy. Next up, we have Elixir Girl of Now. And if you love almond, if you love a gourmand almond, this is definitely a staple almond fragrance to have in your collection. Or if you're a gourmand lover, this is a staple gourmand fragrance to have in your collection. This is definitely intoxicating in the best way, mouth-watering almond from top to bottom. Yeah, this is a very sweet, intoxicating almond. It's syrupy without being too sticky and syrupy. There's still something that's a little bit citrusy that cuts in that sweetness. This has a pistachio opening and it still has that citrus in there that kind of cuts into the sweetness of the almond with the pear and the mandarin orange. Very intoxicating, delicious, mouth-watering. This is a very long-lasting fragrance. This is a fragrance that I think is an amazing date night fragrance, but to be honest, like, this is also an everyday fragrance for me in the fall and winter time. Definitely not like necessarily office appropriate. Depends what kind of lifestyle you have, I guess, what kind of job you have. But people will smell you with this fragrance, and similarly to Poison Girl, this is a very sort of sexy, delicious, gourmand sort of almond that still has some florals and some citruses to balance out the almond and the sweetness. Girl of Now is an amber floral fragrance that came out in 2017. One of my absolute favorite almond fragrances in my collection, Elixir Girl of Now. Next up, we have another one of my favorite vanilla tuberose almond fragrance. This is Trussardi Sound of Donna. This is a very creamy, lactonic, gourmand sort of almond. This actually has a green almond note in the opening, but it does not necessarily smell green. I think that green almonds makes it smell maybe a tad bit soapy, a little bit more bitter in the opening, but because of the rest of the fragrance notes, it doesn't come off as green at all. It's still very creamy, it's nutty, it's dense. I definitely get the tuberose in here. I love that vanilla tuberose almond mix. Similarly to, of course, in Rolling in Love, though Rolling in Love does not smell like Trussardi Sound of Donna, and Rolling in Love is a lot more unique to me than Sound of Donna. This is again still very sweet. This is vanilla. This is not only nutty from the green almond, it also has chestnut in there, and the whipped cream with the chestnut and the almond all together with the tuberose, the heliotrope, which also brings out that almond accord. Beautiful, easy to wear, everyday sort of gourmand fragrance, gourmand almond fragrance. To me, this is definitely a great everyday sort of gourmand fragrance. You could totally wear it for a going out or like date night sort of situation, but it still feels a little bit more casual to me than say Poison Girl. Yeah, than Poison Girl. It definitely feels a little bit more casual to me. If you love a lactonic fragrance, if you love a creamy, dense, nutty fragrance, and you also like a lot of sweetness and vanilla, check out Trussardi Sound of Donna. This is a amber floral fragrance that came out in 2019. Very mouthwatering. It has a little bit of citrus in the opening that cuts a little bit of the sweetness and the density, but not as much citrus as say Poison Girl or Ellie Saab's Girl of Now. Next up we have by Lancôme, and this is Iris Dragée. I'm gonna try not to flash you there. This is Iris Dragée by Lancôme. This is an amber vanilla fragrance that came out in 2018. I'm still unsure if it's been discontinued. It does seem to be a little bit harder to find at times, but I do know you can still find it out there. This is one of my favorite comforting almond fragrances. It's equal measures and equal parts iris as well. I'm getting a little bit of that pepper, pink pepper and orange opening, but it very quickly dissipates and dries down into a beautiful, very sweet almond iris powdery fragrance. The sweetness though, even though it is quite sweet, it's not a syrupy sweetness like the other fragrances I've mentioned. This is definitely more powdery, a little bit more cozy. It feels like the almonds, yeah, it's like candied almonds. It feels very comforting. This is not a sexy going out sort of fragrance. This is more of an everyday fragrance, maybe more of a cozy evening, staying at home sort of fragrance. I definitely think this is maybe a more mature fragrance, maybe a more mature powdery iris almond fragrance. I don't feel like it's mature, but when I really think about it, I picture an older woman, older. I'm talking about myself here. I'm not picturing a teen girl wearing this, if you know what I mean. That's all I mean. One of my absolute favorite fragrances to reach for when I just want to wind down at the end of a day. This is Iris Dragée, and as well, this is not a very loud beast mode fragrance, but it is very long lasting. So what I mean by that is that it doesn't have beastly projection, but it does leave a trail. It does leave a good sillage, and you will smell it. It will stay on your clothes forever. Fragrances don't tend to stay on my skin that long, but this is something that when I spray it at night, I still smell it in the morning. This is a very powdery, soft, nutty almond and still quite sweet. One of my absolute favorite fragrances in my collection, period, as well. This is Iris Dragée by Lancôme. Last but not least, we have the queen of almond fragrance, of course, and this is by Xerjoff. As part of the Casamorati line, this is Italica, and this is a pure amaretti almond fragrance. It smells just like those amaretti cookies with a delicious glass of milk. Italica is an amber vanilla fragrance that came out in 2016. I think this is a love it or hate it sort of fragrance for most people. This is definitely that liqueur amaretto almond sort of almond. It gets very, very milky and lactonic. This is definitely very gourmand. This is a smell like a snack sort of fragrance. It does have a beautiful saffron note in the opening that I really love, that I think adds a little twist to the fragrance. But other than that, it doesn't have any other florals to round it out. It does have some musk and sandalwood in the base, but I think that's just blended into the very dense almond milk. The sandalwood is very creamy. It's not very woody or dry. It's still very creamy in this fragrance, and the musk is still rather understated. One of the absolute best gourmand fragrances for sure, and when I say gourmand, this is literally a gourmand fragrance. When you have something that's more like Poison Girl, this is, for a lot of people actually, I think this is more of a wearable gourmand, right? So you have literal gourmands like this, where it literally smells like something you could eat, and then you have gourmands that are like Poison Girl, where it smells like something you want to eat, sort of, like it makes your mouth water, but you wouldn't actually, because it has those floral florals, the woods, the musks, all in the mixture that still make it smell very much like a perfume. This really does smell almost edible. Definitely one of a kind in my collection, and definitely a very, very specific kind of almond fragrance. Like I said, I think Amaretti cookies, if you have not already smelled them, if you just open a bag and you get that whiff of the Amaretti cookies, personally, I have a very love-hate relationship with Amaretti cookies. I don't know, maybe I ate too many when I was younger. Maybe it's the liqueur that used to off-put me, but in here, it's really, really lovely. But that's definitely what I get. And that milk note definitely is present and makes it very milky and lactonic. And yeah, maybe it's Amaretti, maybe it's those cookies. It makes it kind of like a boozy, milky sort of almond. So that's Musc Italica. It's definitely a quintessential niche fragrance. Like, it's not really an everyday fragrance. You might actually be at a loss as to when or how or where you're gonna wear this, unless you already wear a lot of linear gourmand fragrances. This is something that, again, I prefer to wear in the evenings when I'm curling up, getting ready for bed, when I feel a little bit more comforted, a little bit more cozy. This is the kind of situation that I will reach for this fragrance. I think for most in the Musc line, these are not very huge projectors. They do leave a trail though. There is good sillage, and I do find this one still long lasting. I do smell this in the morning still on me, and yeah, this is one of the more unique almond fragrances in my collection. So let's just do a little wrap up of the dry downs of all those fragrances since I've been here for like freaking 2 hours. L'homme idéale, definitely masculine, smoky. I still get that cardamom in there. The almond is there, but it's a very woody almond. I still get it, but it's a very woody almond. It feels a little bit gourmand still, but in a more masculine, understated sort of way. Beautiful, very classy man fragrance. It's a very classy manly fragrance, as are most Guerlain, if not all Guerlain fragrances. Italica is so milky and creamy and just comforting and cozy, really edible. That almond is just like, I just feel like it's doughy, like I'm gonna go like, like in the marzipan way, even though it doesn't smell like marzipan, like I said, like those Amaretti cookies, but doughy and dense like marzipan, definitely. Rolling in Love, that beautiful vanilla tuberose creamy almond milk vibe, beautiful, very unique. I don't know why it comes together in a very unique sort of signature scent sort of way, but it is. It's very unique to my nose. I love it, and I really like how it's still sweet and feminine, but it's not too sweet. It could have gone sweeter, and I'm glad it didn't. I still get that bittersweet vibe from the almond milk in here. Love Rolling in Love. Poison Girl, that definitely gourmand fragrance. The citrus has dissipated quite a bit. I'm just getting that nutty base, that vanilla nutty base with some sandalwood and that cashmere in there too, adding a velvety touch to it. Lovely. Sound of Donna definitely has that whipped cream stage right now. It's very whipped. I get that almond, that nuttiness, the chestnut with the almond, but it feels very whipped and airy at the same time without being fresh. It's very creamy and lactonic. I still get the tuberose in there. I still get the florals, a little bit of that orange blossom. Sound of Donna. Lumière Blanche, I'm definitely getting more of that almondy, milky. It's more of a milky almondy with the sandalwood sort of fragrance. I get those spices, but they're much more toned down, and personally that's what I prefer. I prefer when that spiciness gets toned down in this fragrance and you're left with just that cozy, soft, velvety almond sandalwood, powdery iris. Beautiful, definitely straight down the middle, very unisex fragrance. Majestic Musk, again, so funny to think that there's no almond, there's no actual almond note in here, but it's definitely that heliotrope in there, that heliotrope with the juniper berries, which I think is giving it a aromatic bitter quality. This is one of the least sweet fragrances in here while still staying quite feminine. It's really the juniper berries that make it more unisex. I think without that it would lean more feminine, but that really makes it lean completely unisex to me. Not gourmand, more of a musky, powdery, vanilla almond sort of vibe to it. Majestic Musk. Fall fall cashmere. I'm getting more of that caramelized vanilla from it. I still get a lot of that cinnamon. It's hard to distinguish the almond in there, but it's more of that roasted almond, like I said. That roasted, dry, nutty almond. Still gourmand, but not a literal gourmand fragrance. It still has that woodiness in there and that muskiness in there, and those spices that are very present throughout the whole fragrance. A very cozy fragrance. Fall cashmere and Lumière Blanche. Different fragrances, but very similar vibes. A very similar sort of cozy vibe to them. Brit Edt, I'm definitely getting that soft, doughy, nutty almond in there now. The citrus has almost completely dissipated. This is not as strong. It's a little bit more faint now as a whole, the fragrance, but definitely very nutty, very almondy there without being too sweet. I find vanilla cake, very sweet. It feels like an almond cake. Okay, it's vanilla cake, but it feels like a almondy pound cake. It's heavy and dense. Lovely literal gourmand fragrance. Lacoste Elixir, I love the fragrance. I do get that fuzzy, hazy, nutty almond heliotrope in here. Unfortunately, I find it a little bit too weak. I wish it projected more. Like I said, this is a fragrance that I still really enjoy though, and I will keep reaching for, especially at bedtime or when I'm around the house and don't mind needing to reapply in a few hours. That's that fragrance. Widian Rose Arabia Almond. Again, very syrupy almond in here. Now, I find that on my skin, I prefer the way it smells than on the blotter, than on the paper. It melds into your skin a little bit more. Here it really sits on top of the paper and it can feel very dense and sticky and too sweet, but it's very sweet. This is a very nutty, sweet, fruity, sweet almond white floral fragrance. I think you do need to enjoy white florals and fruits and a very strong sweet vibe as much as you like almond to enjoy this fragrance. Musc Diamant, the almond has totally come out now. It's very cozy. The nuttiness in here is very gentle. I think you can see it on my face. It feels like just a gentle hug of a fragrance. Very unique almond in this as well, because like I said, it's not gourmand, it's not bitter, it's not syrupy. It's more of that cozy almond, I guess similar to, in terms of vibes, to like Lumière Blanche, but very, very feminine. A little bit too proper maybe for some people. It does feel a little bit prim and proper as a fragrance. I don't mind that. I love it. But I think it might be too that for some people. Too prim and proper. It feels so pretty. It's just a very pretty almond musky sandalwood fragrance. Very pretty. Oh My Secret. It's interesting because I'm getting the almond, definitely. It's definitely more on the faint side. This plus Lacoste Elixir, both of those are probably the ones that smell the least strong on this paper, that have died down the most. I definitely get almond in here. It's funny, it reminds me a little bit of the almond accord I get in Majestic Musk. Bois Dore, beautiful. I really like that the woodiness in here is not too harsh. It really does blend very, very well with the tobacco, the vanilla, and the almond in here. They're all very well blended, perfectly unisex. This would be really, really, really beautiful on a man. So I love this, but I think that this is an easy love for a man. Like, yeah, this might be too masculine for some women. One of the sexiest fragrances on a man. I don't think I would feel sexy as a woman wearing this. I would just really enjoy the scent on me, but I wouldn't necessarily feel very sexy, I don't think, wearing it. But this on a man, I would find this very sexy. Such a beautiful fragrance. And Italica is absolutely mouth-watering. Whenever I smell it like this, I'm like, I love it. And I'm glad I love it because, like I said, I have a difficult relationship with those amaretti cookies. This is those amaretti cookies though, with that beautiful milk to soften the edges and take out the booziness out of it. It's just lovely. Definitely softer, right? Not a beast projector. Lovely fragrance. Definitely very gourmand. What am I missing? I know I'm missing one here. Oh, Iris Dragé. Yeah, definitely that powdery. I still get the iris in there. Very sweet candied almonds. Musky, very powdery. Definitely very feminine to me and still very strong. So thank you so much for watching, you guys. I really hope that you enjoyed this video. I would love to know in the comments down below what other note specific video you would like for me to make next. Definitely leave your favorites and any kind of recommendations down below. Share the info with us all. I know a lot of us in the community here love almond fragrances, and we are always on the lookout for new almond fragrances. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like it on your way out, and of course subscribe to see some more videos from me in the future. As always, remember, take care of yourself. I'll see you very soon. Bye.